It's time!
3, 2, 1, go. Get up, let me begin. This is TWSN. You ain't heard about us yet, well you better know now, because it's the place that it all goes down. Get up, let me begin. This is TWSN. You ain't heard about us yet, well you better know now, because it's the place that it all goes down.
Shout out Young Swish.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome into Strikes and Submissions. I am your host, Michael Daly, and I am joined alongside by my co-host, Dash Pederson, as I am every Wednesday evening, 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific, here on the TWSN YouTube and Twitter pages. Thank you so much for tuning in. Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel, the Patreon, all that good stuff. Dash, let's get into it. Arguably, the fight of the year took place at Madison Square Garden last weekend. Katie Taylor with the upset win over Amanda Serrano. Your takeaways of that fight, what were they?
Well, I'll be frank. Serrano was robbed, right? Katie Taylor did not beat her, in my opinion. I think that's no, I'm not the only one. I saw plenty of stuff after the fight where people were just not in agreement with the judges. I mean, you can't tell me Amanda Serrano didn't win the early part of that fight. She was winning. She was controlling what was happening. And I think the only things that I saw from her that would tell me that she wouldn't have won would have been that, okay, yeah, she relaxed a little bit towards the end of the fight, didn't seem to be going as hard as she did early. And then, I mean, if you want to make the argument that, okay, she'd be taking Katie Taylor's belt, then okay, like she has to do a little bit more to take the belt because she's the challenger. And so, I mean, those are the only arguments that I can see in my mind. And even then, I would still argue that regardless, Amanda Serrano won more rounds than Katie Taylor, and that should be what denotes who wins the boxing fight.
Yeah, I see where you're coming from, Dash. And I have to agree with you, because at the end of the day, not only do you take into account who inflicted more damage, which I would say easily Amanda Serrano did.
Easily.
Amanda Serrano took over the first half of that fight, and well into the second half, she was still in control. I think the one downside to her performance, which might have been why there were two judges going against Serrano and not for her defense was not all there. So I'll give the judges that. I think it's because Katie Taylor, there was an opportunity for her to get stopped. I think we can both admit that. It looked like Katie Taylor was going out.
Give me 3-minute rounds next time, and she is out.
See, you know what? With 3-minute rounds, if I'm Katie Taylor, I don't want to fight 3-minute rounds.
No, I don't.
I've never fought 3-minute rounds, and now I'm going to play right into Amanda Serrano's hands? No. I will take this split decision win gladly, and the rematch, we will have the same set of rules time-wise. So I think Katie Taylor got away with one. I do. I think it helped that Eddie Hearn was her promoter. But with that being said, and although it was a robbery, I'm not saying the fix was in. That's not what I'm not saying the fight was fixed. The outcome was fixed. It's not what I'm saying. But I do think it helped that Katie Taylor was resilient in the back half of the fight. And I think that served her well in the decision. With that being said, though, Amanda Serrano should have won the fight just because of her sheer power. I think she landed the more significant strikes. And at the end of the day, she dictated where the fight went for the entire duration of it. So if that's not the winner, then I don't know what is. And last thing I'll say here, Dash, I have to disagree with something Eddie Hearn said. He said, Jake Paul was complaining about Amanda Serrano not getting the win. She was robbed. Well, Jake Paul didn't even know who won when they were announcing. Well, yeah, it was a close fight. Let's not act like it wasn't. It was a close fight, of course. And honestly, I'm not entirely mad at a split decision because at least one judge saw it in favor of Amanda Serrano. So that's good. But, I mean, come on. What more does Amanda Serrano have to do to win, Dash?
Put her out, I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess that's it. And I mean, I saw a clip of Jake Paul and Eddie Hearn side by side in the last round. And I mean, Jake Paul was celebrating, throwing his hands up. Yeah, let's go, Amanda. And Eddie Hearn he did not look like the guy who was a promoter for a winner. He looked like he was nervous. He was like, oh, no, like, what's going to happen? Like, come on, Katie, do something. And Jake Paul was celebrating. I mean, at the time, that's how I felt too. Like, if I was Jake Paul, I'd be going crazy. I think Amanda Serrano wins that fight. And so, yeah, I mean, the crowd was awesome. And I mean, I loved their post-game or post-fight interviews, both willing to do it again. And I mean, I hope they do because that crowd was awesome. And I mean, like, that's just so good for women's boxing as a sport. I mean, getting that kind of fight, getting that kind of attention on the fight. I mean, the only downside I'd say is there's a lot of female boxers out there that have a high standard that's now been set for boxing matches. I mean, that's hard to like live up to right there. That is again, like you said, like fight of the year so far, at least men or women. I mean, that's just a a barn burner. So yeah, would love to see a rematch. I know you were talking about potentially seeing that in Las Vegas the last week when we were on the show, and I like that idea. But I mean, Ireland, biggest star Ireland's ever really had in Katie Taylor. Conor McGregor's up there, but in terms of pure success, Katie Taylor is undeniably more successful than Conor McGregor. So I mean, you bring her home, you get that. I mean, undefeated still. He's lost.
Whoa, I'm not going to let you get away with that. Hold on.
Okay, we can go. I mean,
I agree with you. But let's not act like Conor McGregor didn't win 2 titles. Let's not act like Conor McGregor didn't put not only Irish MMA, but European MMA to a whole nother level. Now, Katie Taylor has done the same thing for women's boxing and boxing in general with how much of a megastar she is. But Conor McGregor, though, to me, he's a pioneer.
Absolutely.
I can't disrespect. I get what you're saying because if we're looking at record wise, Katie Taylor's unblemished. But Conor McGregor, though, what he has achieved, I don't know. That's a tough one. So sorry, continue.
Yeah, no, I mean, maybe in terms of worldwide fame, Conor McGregor has a little bit more spark to his name as of right now. But I mean, yeah, you bring her home, get all the fans, all the boxing, all the MMA fans. I'm sure anybody in Ireland would be there. I mean, that's a fight to make. That's a fight to promote the hell out of. I mean, that would be just awesome.
Let me ask you a question then, for you to answer. If you're Amanda Serrano, do you take that fight in Ireland or do you run it back at MSG because MSG has already put in a bid for the rematch? What would you do if you were Serrano and you already lost?
I mean, I don't know. If I'm Serrano, I don't see a problem with going to Ireland. I mean, if you beat Katie Taylor on her home turf, I mean, there's something to be said for that, right? And to give her first loss in front of her home fans, sure, she's going to have the crowd roaring for her, but I mean, when it comes down to it, when you're in the ring, all that sound goes away. And I mean, the only thing that matters is the person standing in front of you. And I think that if Amanda Serrano, I think she thinks that she won that fight, and I don't think she cares where it is. If the promoters decide they're going to do it in Ireland, I think she's going to be totally down for it. She's going to be so ready. She's like, yep, I'm going wherever. There, MSG, Vegas, wherever it goes. I mean, she's going to be there and she's going to be ready.
Yeah, I get that, but I just think the fight would be bigger in the States. I think it would. Because I get Katie Taylor is a mega star over in Europe, but in order for a fight to really be big, like globally big, it has to be, I think, in the U.S. Other than someone like Tyson Fury. Fury can pull off fighting Dillian White in England, but Taylor, for a big fight like that either belongs at MSG, where it's a hallowed grounds there, or it belongs in Vegas. One of the two. Ireland is great, but if you're Amanda Serrano, you just got robbed in your hometown. Now you're going to go to Ireland, and if you don't put this girl away, you're going to get robbed again. So that's
Yeah,
how
but
I
I
feel
mean,
about it.
you got robbed in your hometown, and you could go and rob her in her hometown. So I don't know.
I don't know if it'll work like that, though.
We'll see. I mean, I hope the judges won't rob anybody in the second
Hopefully
match,
not.
but hopefully not. We never know though. So I mean, I don't know. We'll see. I'm excited though. Like the rematch, I'm glad that instantly right there they both agreed to it. Like, yeah, let's do it again. And so I mean, that's great for the sport of boxing, and I'm excited to see those two go at it one more time, potentially even two more times.
Yep. I mean, if it's a trilogy, sign me up for it. Aside from the awful judging, but another fight though that was great for the sport of boxing happened Saturday night as well. Shakur Stevenson became the unified 130-pound champion when he defeated Oscar Valdez. Dash, from start to finish, Shakur put on a masterclass against Valdez.
I think those exact words were used by us on the show last week. I think we said Shakur was going to have a boxing masterclass. I think Shakur Stevenson even said he was going to put on a boxing masterclass. And what did he do? He made it look easy. And I mean, I think that was kind of what we expected. I mean, going in, he was a ginormous favorite. And I mean, you always get a little bit nervous when you see that. You're like, oh, is he really that much better? But he was. And I think that was just undeniable. He outboxed Valdez for 95% of the fight. Valdez had a moment here or there. But as soon as that moment passed, Shakur was back in control and back on top. So, I mean, yeah, he's he's great. And I mean, to be as young as he is, to be as talented as he is, he has a long, bright future in the sport of boxing.
He has a chance to be what a lot of people think certain fighters in the 135-pound division can be, like Gervonta Davis, Devin Haney. I think he's going to exceed all of those guys. I honestly do, Dash. I think when it's all said and done, Shakur Stevenson might be the number one pound-for-pound champion very, very soon, within the next 2 or 3 years, especially with Errol Spence getting older, Terrence Crawford getting older, Noya, in a way, he's a lighter fighter, and he'll never get the respect he deserves. He's a monster, don't get me wrong. In a way, is a beast. But I think Shakur Stevenson will leapfrog all those guys eventually. If he keeps winning and keeps it up like this, he's going to be a pay-per-view megastar.
Yeah, and I mean, I think if I'm anybody in any division, like 155 or under, I'm pretty scared. And I think Shakur has a good chance to rule so many divisions and just be at the top of really anywhere from 155 down. Like, I mean, we'll see, but I think he has just that ability to totally take over a bunch of divisions, like be the owner of so many belts. And I mean, he's so good, and it was just a treat getting to watch him fight against Valdez. And I mean, that was his hardest competition yet, an undefeated guy who held a belt. And what did he do? He made him look like, I don't know, like an amateur.
Not a champion.
So, yeah, he certainly didn't look like a champion in there. And I mean, yeah, the one thing I didn't like about that is the post-fight interviews when they were talking to Valdez. They were like, what went wrong? He was like, he outboxed me. And they were like, okay, but if there's one thing that he did wrong, well, he outboxed me. And they just kept going at Valdez. And I feel bad for the guy after he just took the first loss of his professional career. And they're just trying to break him down, I guess, and make him elicit some response. So we'll see. I mean, it's all TV, but I don't know. Give the guy some props. Shakur Stevenson is not like anybody else he's fought. So
Valdez will be a champ again. I believe that. Even if it's not at 130, will he go back down to 126? He's a little big for 126 now. But I don't know. I see Oscar Valdez getting back to a title. I don't know how you feel about him with that, but he's just so talented. But the problem is, though, he ran into a technical buzzsaw in Oscar Valdez and Shakur Stevenson. And what I compare this to, Dash, and I don't know if you've ever seen this fight, but I compared it to Floyd Mayweather when he fought, and some people might think this is crazy, but Diego Corrales. I believe the year was 2000 or 2001. I might have the year off there. But there were these two rising stars that met, and Floyd just took care of business. And he did. And Diego Corrales was a phenomenal fighter before, obviously, his death. God rest his soul. But I say all that to say Oscar Valdez, I think, has a shot to become another world champion again and learn from it.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the classic cases of what happens when an unstoppable force meets an immovable object. And I think what happened was the unstoppable force showed that the object was movable. And while he's still a very, very good, very capable fighter, I mean, it's just hard when you go up against somebody like that. And I mean, yeah, he's so talented and he's certainly up in the top tier still of boxers. But again, I think there's the top tier and then there's the Shakur Stevenson tier. So
Elite.
yeah, the elite of the best of the best. And I think that he can still have a very good future in boxing. I think he is 31 now, and so this was kind of, if he was able to win, this would have been probably the highlight of his career. But I mean, not to say that he doesn't have any future left. I mean, he still, it looked like a very capable fighter. He didn't get put out. I mean, he's still has never been put out in the ring. And so I mean, as long as his chin stays up, I think he's going to be able to keep his cardio. He's going to be able to go out and he's going to still take people's heads off. So yeah, I mean, Valdez still definitely has a good future in boxing, but yeah, I don't think he's getting that back from Shakur Stevenson anytime soon.
Yeah, we'll see. Both of those guys, I think they still have bright futures, especially Valdez. I think he has a chance to rebound. Now, another person that's going to have to rebound after their loss at UFC Vegas 53, Rob Font. That Dash was a tough fight to watch if you're a Rob Font fan. The fight itself was entertaining, but he took so much damage. There were several instances, especially at the end of 2 rounds, it looked like that fight was going to be called off, but he survived. Credit to him.
He did. And I mean, I think that was good refereeing. I mean, yes, he took a total beating, but there was no point at which he was totally out. And I think like that showed by the fact that he was able to continue and still go out and put forth a solid effort. I mean, I think the biggest takeaway that I had from that fight was that Cheeto just looked unbreakable. I mean, Rob Font hit him with what, 200 plus strikes? Cheeto literally took hundreds of shots, and I'm not even sure he bled. I mean, he just looked invincible out there. And yeah, I mean, I do think the one problem that I have with Cheeto from that fight was that he wasn't able to go out and finish Rob Font. And not that he couldn't have, it was that he chose not to. And he wanted that highlight reel, like one punch walk off or spinning kick walk off, whatever. Because there were times when, I mean, after he knocked Rob Font to the ground, Rob Font was just sitting there on his back, and Cheeto could have easily gotten down on the ground and hit him with a few hard elbows and with a few punches, and the fight would have been over. But instead, Cheeto just stood there, kind of kicking his legs, waiting for him to get up. And then after like 30 seconds, the judge comes in, or the referee comes in and says, all right, stand up. And I think that was kind of the problem that I had with Cheeto from that fight. And while he basically knew that Font had no way of putting him out, because Font hit him with all of his best shots, I believe,
Right.
and Cheeto just ate them, just right on the chin. He just didn't care. He just kept walking forward. And I mean, kudos to Font, because he put out so much effort and put out so many strikes, and he was always active. But I mean, what do you do when you hit somebody as hard as you can for 4 rounds straight, 5 rounds straight, and they don't even break a sweat hardly? I mean, I don't know. That's got to be demoralizing for Font, but I think for everybody else in that division, Cheeto's just got a little bit scarier. I mean, he looked totally invincible.
Now he's top 5. That's the crazy thing about Cheeto. If you could beat Rob Font, right? Rob Font's the same guy who beat Cody Garbrandt, who was on the doorstep of a title fight last year. And then Rob Font obviously lost afterward, but Rob Font, if you beat him, you're sitting very, very high up in the elite title chamber. That's where you are. Will Cheeto get an immediate shot? No. I think he's got to win. He's got to win one more, but he's
Absolutely.
in the top 5. So he's where he needs to be, right? I mean, someone pulls out with an injury, he's available, boom, he's right there. If he doesn't get a fight in between, because if you're top 5, like Marlon Cheeto Vera is, you have earned your way. And he has done it after that win over Sean O'Malley. He's been on a rocket ride. Look what he did to Davy Grant. Davy Grant's not an easy guy to beat, and how he handled that, and he even overcame a loss to Jose Aldo in the meantime. So his ability to just keep going and his power is something to be marveled at. I think if you are Petr Yan, if you are Aljamain Sterling, TJ Dillashaw, Corey Sandhagen, if you're any of those guys, if you're going to accept the fight and sign the dotted line against Chito Vera, you got to be ready for everything that's coming his way because he can crack and he can put you out.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, he can, and I mean, it's just, can he be cracked too? I think that's part of like the question that you have now. I mean, yes, Aldo beat him, but I mean, Chito is, since then, I mean, he's looked just totally unflappable. And so I think that if I'm any of those top guys, I'm a little bit nervous because I mean, I'm seeing, okay, he just took an absolute beating from like a guy who was top 5, right? Like Font was top 5 until Chito beat him. And so, I mean, it's just what he did to Rob Font. I mean, Rob Font was hardly recognizable after the fight. I mean, his whole face was like a balloon, just swollen everywhere. And yeah, I mean, again, kudos to Rob Font for hanging in there and continuing to get up and keep going at him. But I mean, man, it was brutal to watch if you were a Rob Font fan. Chito certainly kept it entertaining. I mean, did his little taunting here and there, just keeping Rob Font coming at him, and he was just picking him apart. So, I mean, we'll see what happens with the in terms of Chito's next fight. I think I don't know, because I mean, Dillashaw is going to get that next title shot, but do you see Petr Yan taking a fight against Chito? I mean, I could see that. I think that wouldn't be the worst fight for him. I think that Yan would look at Chito and, well, again, even then, I don't know, because he's such a good boxer, and the way that Chito just took all those shots, like, and Font has an elite jab. Like, let's not get that twisted. Like, he's known for having a phenomenal jab, and he was living behind it all night. And Chito was just eating it over and over and eating whatever came behind it too. So, I mean, I think if I'm Petr Yan, that I might be a little bit worried about that. No?
See, I don't know, because I think Yan in a way might have to take that fight if it's not offered to someone else, because I'm looking at the top 5 right now. Aljo is obviously the champ. Petr is ranked 1. TJ is 2. Jose Aldo 3. Corey 4. And then 5, Marlon Vera. Where? Oh my. See, I got Marlon Vera confused with Marlon Moraes. For a second, my brain, because I'm so used to calling
Cheeto.
Obviously, it's Marlon Cheeto Vera. My brain was like, Marlon Moraes. What does Marlon Moraes do? He just retired. No, so it's more. So okay, Cheeto Vera is 5. So I bring up the top 5 because Petr Yan, aside from TJ, has fought all of those guys. Is he going to fight Aldo again? He might not want to.
I wouldn't.
Yeah, I don't know for him with a belt not on the line if it's worth fighting Aldo. I don't think it is. But
no,
fighting Vera, it might, because if you beat Chito, then I think if you beat really anyone in the top 5, you're back on the doorstep of a title shot. But if you beat Chito, who has all this firepower behind him currently, I think you're in the driver's seat to either fight TJ next, or if Aljo successfully defends his belt.
Yeah, and I mean, if I'm Petr Yan, I mean, I want Aljo again. And I mean, 2 times, you could make the argument that Yan should have won. And so, I mean, it's always hard and interesting on the UFC's part to book a trilogy when one fighter's already won the first 2 fights. But I mean, I think if he beats a guy like Chito, if he ends up fighting Aldo, taking that and fighting him again, I mean, how can you deny it? Like, how can you not give him that shot? How interesting. Chito called out Cruz.
Yeah, so Dash, to this point, and I get where Chase is coming from, because I know he called him out. It doesn't make sense.
No.
If you're Chito Vera, why take a step back? You're fighting a guy who's 8th when you're top 5 now and your eyes are on the title. Like, who cares that you called him out in the past? Leave Dominic Cruz behind. Call for a fight with Jan. If you beat Jan, you're next in line for a title. If you beat Dominic Cruz, does that get you a title shot? I don't think so. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, Dash. I don't think beating Dominic Cruz in 2022, albeit it's a great thing to put on your resume. Not saying it isn't, but it's not the same as Petr Yan in 2022. It's not. So
No,
I don't want to
absolutely
hear
not.
Dominic Cruz.
Yeah, I don't either. And I mean, after the fight, Cheeto was able to go, and I believe Michael Bisping asked him, "Who do you want next?" And Cheeto said, 4, 3, 2, 1. Anybody, like, give me any of those guys. Like,
Yeah.
he knows he's not ready for a title shot yet. He hasn't quite earned that. But I mean, if I'm Cheeto, I think I want Aljamain Sterling as the guy I'm fighting. I mean, besides Corey Sandhagen out of that top 5, I think I would probably rather fight Aljo than any of the other guys. So, I mean, if Aljo's able to defeat Dillashaw and Cheeto's able to get a fight with, I mean, the problem is I don't see him getting a title shot after beating Sandhagen. I don't see that happening. I think he would need to go and beat Aldo if he was able to get a rematch, or he needs to beat Jan. I think those are the 2 fights that he should be looking for in terms of getting another title shot. Because Sandhagen's good, don't get me wrong, but he's lost a couple now, right? And so, I mean, we'll see. We'll see, but yeah, I'm certainly looking for the Petr Yan or, and I mean, especially if I'm Cheeto, I want the Petr Yan fight because I've just fought a great boxer and I just ate everything that they had to throw at me. Yes, Yan is a different monster, but he gets started slow, and you can do some dirty work early in the first couple rounds. And yeah, I mean, I think that would be, I don't know. It's weird to say that somebody should want to fight Petr Yan, but I think he should, like, that's probably where I'd want to go.
It's high risk, but it's high reward.
Absolutely.
Whereas fighting Dominic Cruz, not only is it high risk, it's low reward. And Chase is saying, "Oh, Jason Perillo." I get it. I understand the history of Jason Perillo being his trainer and the history of Dominic Cruz. But if you're Cheeto, like, your window of fighting for a title is so slim. You got to strike while the iron's hot. And I get that Dominic Cruz also is trying to get back to that point. But I don't know. I just don't think the fight makes sense. If the only person that Cheeto should be calling out right now is the person with a 1 by their name, and that's Petr Yan. Like, that right now is the fight that makes the most sense. Sandhagen, I would say, makes more sense. But still, Yan, I mean, that should be the guy he's fighting. So I don't know. I think that's where we'll leave off on this. We'll see. But Cheeto has a shot to make a title run very soon. It would not shock me, and I'm sure you're the same, Dash. It wouldn't be shocking if Cheeto is fighting for a title. It wouldn't.
Absolutely not.
So we'll see. Speaking of title fights, though, we're going to preview Canelo Alvarez, Dimitri Bivol. And you know what, Dash? This is a fight that I have been looking forward to for a while. At least since, I would say, February, when it was announced. Because Canelo obviously is, at this point, the biggest star in boxing. This guy can be painting, and he will get a ton of people to watch him. That's how big of a mega star draw Canelo Alvarez is. But I like the challenge that Dimitri Bivol offers him in this one. I have thought this, though. If this fight would have taken place in 2017, I think Bivol would have a better chance to win.
I was worried you were going to say he would have won.
No. See, it's tough because at that point, though, Canelo, the highest he fought was, I guess, 164 at that point was the highest he fought when he fought Julio Cesar Chavez Jr., but it was 164 at a catchweight. He hadn't even fought at super middleweight yet at that point, or real super middleweight. So it's hard to really look at years because Canelo at that point just left the 154-pound division, moved up to 160. So he was really trying to get his bearings straight there. But I'm more or less saying if the 2017 version of Dimitri Bivol went and fought the 2022 version of Canelo Alvarez, I think it would be a much more competitive fight. And the reason why I say that, Bivol took a 1.5 year layoff from October 2019 to May 2021. That's a long time, especially when his last 6 wins have been by decision. You're not going to outbox Canelo Alvarez. And that's the problem I have, whereas 2017 Bivol, I think, could have. But his skills, I don't want to say they have regressed, but Bivol is not as feared as he once was.
No,
he was
by no
feared,
means.
Dash.
Yeah, and I mean, when you go from knocking people out to just winning by decision, I mean, people aren't as worried, obviously, about being knocked out. And I think with Canelo, he's never really worried about being knocked out. But you certainly have to take into consideration when you're fighting a guy, like if you would have been fighting 2017 Bivol. But now it's just going to be a steep uphill battle for Bivol. I mean, fighting against a guy like Canelo with so much experience, over 55 career wins. I mean, the dude is one of the greatest to ever do it. And I mean, yeah, like you said, he's an absolute megastar right now, and you're not going to outbox him. And I think that's because that's how he's kind of been tailoring his fights recently, is to outpoint, outbox, and win by decision. I mean, that's just not going to happen against Canelo. And I don't think, I just don't see this being particularly close. I think Canelo's going to win this pretty handily. And I mean, sure, Canelo's the smaller guy. When has he not been the smaller guy, it feels like? I mean, he's not the largest of people, and he always finds a way, and he's going to get inside. He's going to rip you to the body. He's going to go upstairs. He's going to make you look like a lesser boxer, and that's just what he does. So, I mean, I think he's going to be able to do the same thing to Bivol. And, yeah, I mean, I can't say I'm as excited about this one as I was about last weekend's boxing main events, but I mean, again, it's Canelo Alvarez. Anytime you get to watch Canelo fight, it's always going to be a good night, but I think it's going to be not the closest.
And Canelo, it's pretty much a rite of passage. He fights every Cinco de Mayo, especially after Floyd Mayweather retired from boxing. But let's address the elephant in the room here. Bivol, if he loses, right, which I think a lot of people expect Bivol to lose, Canelo Alvarez has a fight, a trilogy with Triple G waiting for him in September. So that's the thing here. Like, I think Canelo's going to win by 8th round TKO because I think his power is just going to catch up to Bivol. It's just something he's never seen before. Like, Bivol's toughest opponent, if we're looking at it skill-wise, Joe Smith Jr. I like Joe Smith Jr. He's a solid champion, has a great background. But, I mean, Canelo Alvarez.
He's not Canelo Alvarez.
Yeah, like Canelo Alvarez is Canelo Alvarez. So I think that's where Bivol's going to run into an issue. But what Canelo can't do, and the reason why I bring up the Triple G fight, what he can't do is overlook Bivol. He has to focus on May 7th, which will also be the 6th anniversary of his knockout win against Amir Khan, by the way. I just remembered that. He's got to get past Bivol. And then, once you do that, then you focus on Triple G. Because
absolutely.
Because this is a trip-up fight.
Yeah, it's definitely a trap fight in that sense of, yes, what's lurking on the horizon for him is the trilogy with Triple G, and that's what he's going to be thinking about. I think that's what his camp's going to be thinking about. But at the same time, yeah, you only fight the guy in front of you, and that's the only one that matters until the fight's done. Until the final bell rings, the person that's the most important to you is the one who's right in front of you, and that's going to be Dimitri Bivol. And I mean, yeah, if I'm Bivol, I think that he kind of is going to have to adopt the role of, yeah, I'm being overlooked, and like I need to fight like it. I need to fight like I have nothing to lose. Yes, obviously you have a belt to lose, but like you're fighting Canelo, and you have to come out like a man possessed if you're going to have a chance to unseat Canelo. And I mean, that would be a huge win for Bivol, his biggest win easily. And I mean, yeah, I just again, I don't see that happening. I think that the trilogy fight with Triple G is bound to happen, and it's going to happen because Canelo is going to walk all over Dimitri Bivol.
I think that's going to happen too. So, final prediction here. What do you got for Canelo winning?
I mean, I think I'm not. I haven't decided if he's going to win by just decision, or if he's going to get maybe if he wins by TKO or knockout, it's going to be in the 10th round for me.
Okay, 10th round. I mean, look, he knocked out Sergey Kovalev, who is not the easiest guy to knock out either. And
absolutely.
So
but
he can do it. If anyone can knock out Dimitri Bivol, it is Canelo Alvarez. But we'll see. We'll see how that one unfolds. And Saturday night, although it may not be as entertaining as last Saturday was, in terms of mega fights, I think it surpasses last Saturday, because not only do you have Canelo Alvarez fighting on Cinco de Mayo, the UFC decided we're going to stage our own card, our own pay-per-view card on Cinco de Mayo. It's going to be in Arizona. Justin Gaethje will fight for Charles Oliveira's lightweight title. Dash, the stage is set. You got Gaethje, you got Oliveira. Who will win and why?
Justin Gaethje is going to unseat Charles Oliveira and become the king of the lightweight division. Yes, I said it. It's going to happen. I mean, Gaethje's he's fighting at home. He's fighting in Arizona. He's from Arizona, right? And he's going to feed off of the crowd. And he's going to totally put on a show for the crowd. I mean, he always puts on a show. Hell, anytime you watch Justin Gaethje fight, it's an absolute war.
Yeah.
And that's what he's going to do. He's going to turn it into a war. And Charles has been through a lot. He's fought a lot of great fighters. But the kind of fight that he's going to get from Gaethje, you can't replicate that. There's nobody that you can spar with. There's nobody that you can get trained with. I mean, that's going to replicate what Justin Gaethje is going to bring at you. And he's going to take it to him from all three levels. I mean, we know how devastating Gaethje can be with his leg kicks. He can light up your body. He can go to your head. And he will. He'll go to all three. And he's well-rounded enough to keep the fight standing, which is where he's going to have the advantage over Charles Oliveira. So, yeah, I mean, he's going to get it back. He's going to get it back at home. And I'm really looking forward to it. Now, don't get me wrong. Charles Oliveira is a great fighter. And he could win at any point. I mean, even standing, you still have to be wary of his submissions. Like that, he's just that good. But I think Justin Gaethje's just so well-rounded, and he's just gonna be dictating where the fight's happening, because he's gonna be constantly applying pressure. And Oliveira's not the greatest in terms of getting takedowns. So I mean, if he finds himself on the ground, yeah, I think it's gonna be everybody who put money on Justin Gaethje is gonna be holding their breath. But if he's able to survive one trip to the ground, I think he's going to be able to control where it happens for the majority of the fight, and that's going to be what's going to get it done for him. I think round four TKO or knockout.
Round 4 TKO for Gaethje.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So Gaethje's best chance of winning is on the feet. Look at Poirier. Poirier had Oliveira in a little bit of trouble on the feet.
Even Michael Chandler.
Please, don't get me okay. So I'm glad you bring that up, because I have been accused of being a Charles Oliveira hater for a very, very long time. Not a very long time. The last year. I've actually been on Charles Oliveira's side, even when he was a 145-pounder. I've been on his side. But the last year, I mean, look, I thought the fight against Chandler should have been stopped.
Agreed. I'm right there with you.
I thought the ref I think it was Dan Miragliotta. I thought he made a mistake not stepping in and saving Charles Oliveira. So I think he got away with one there. And then with Poirier, he was clipped. But the thing is, what I've learned with Charles Oliveira, and it's why I'm picking Charles Oliveira, all he needs is just one sequence for you to turn your back on him, and he's got you. You know, he wasn't able to submit Michael Chandler, but he came very darn close to it. And he submitted Dustin Poirier. He just backpacked him. And Gaethje has only been submitted one time in his career. Obviously, it was to Khabib. I think the second time will happen this Saturday. I think Oliveira is going to find his way to that back. Oliveira will get hurt, by the way. I'm not going to act like Oliveira isn't going to get clipped, because Oliveira is a solid striker, but he likes to mix it up as well. Oliveira likes to throw. He likes to get into firefights because he is a solid striker. That's something that Oliveira is not given enough credit for, his striking. But I think he will pay the price for it a little bit. But he has the ultimate equalizer. He's the greatest submission artist in UFC history. So he
Better
is
than Khabib.
Yeah.
I know in terms of volume, but
in terms of skill, I would say he is. I think so. Not just the number, right? Not just the record that Oliveira holds, but just his versatility, just being, I mean, Khabib might be, well, we could have a whole show about the greatest submission artist. We really could, because there's so many. But Oliveira, in my opinion, though, I think the way he can just change a fight, and even what he can do, right, with his submission ability, even if he can't submit you, once it gets back onto the feet, then he has the favor because you're gassed, and he's not. So that's why I think ultimately he will submit Justin Gaethje. It's hard for me to say that because I know Justin Gaethje is going to come out like a banshee and he's going to try to stop Charles Oliveira, but I just don't see it happening. I think Oliveira gets the submission win.
Yeah, I can totally see it happening. I mean, just like I was saying, you can't replicate what Justin Gaethje can do in terms of aggression and pressure. You can't replicate what Charles Oliveira does in terms of defending your submissions. I mean, you can practice defending every kind of submission that's ever been attempted in the UFC, and Charles Oliveira will do something new. I mean, that's just how good he is. He just knows every single joint in your body he can expose. And I mean, yeah, he's a terrifying guy to go up against. But I think the problem for me is just he hasn't shown the ability to consistently and effectively get takedowns against people who can defend them well. Mm-hmm. And I think that not being able to being a great jiu-jitsu artist is awesome. It's special, but not being able to take advantage of that because the fight's on the feet and because you're not quite able to get the fight to the ground. I think that's where we may see that become a problem for him. Again, if he happens to clip Gaethje while Gaethje's coming forward and Gaethje stumbles a little bit, yeah, he's going to pounce like a tiger. And I mean, he's just going to be all over him, and that's probably going to be that. But again, if Gaethje can control what's happening in terms of where the fight is, in terms of he's backing Charles Oliveira down the whole time, which I frankly expect to see. I mean, I just don't know how Oliveira can hold up. And I think if something like what happens against Chandler happens again, I think it's going to get stopped. I think the last one should have gotten stopped. And so I think, I mean, I don't know. I don't want to say that Dana White necessarily doesn't like Charles Oliveira, but I think Dana White would certainly like to see the lightweight title in an American's hands. And I think that if he may even talk to the refs, say, hey, if that happens again, you got to stop the fight. And I don't know. I mean, I know Dana is certainly has his favorites around the UFC, but we'll see. I mean, don't want to like put the idea in there that it's going to be rigged in any kind of way because I don't think it will be. But it's just like, I mean, I think that's got to be a stoppage, and I think that if anybody's going to do that to Charles Oliveira again, it's absolutely going to be Justin Gaethje.
Yeah, look, I mean, I think Poirier is the better striker than Gaethje, but if Poirier can hurt Charles Oliveira, I think Gaethje has the ability to as well. And I think he will, but I don't think it will be the death knell of Charles Oliveira in this fight. I don't think it will be the reason why Charles Oliveira loses. I think Charles Oliveira will come back, but we'll see. I hope it's a good fight because the co-main leading into the main event, and we'll touch on this quickly before we wrap up the show. Rose Namajunas in a rematch against Carla Esparza. This has the makings of, I don't want to say fight of the year because I hate putting that kind of label and pressure on a fight, but I think it has a shot to be a very, very entertaining fight.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, you talk about rematch, but these are two different fighters than who fought the last time. I mean, the last time they fought was 2014. It was 8 years ago. And since then, we've seen Rose Namajunas just ascend in the UFC. And she's one of the best pound-for-pound fighters in the entire UFC, man or woman. She is just elite, right? And she is, since she lost the title fight to Carla Esparza, she's been 4-1 in title fights, right? She had the super fast lost to Zhang Wei Li and was able, or to Andrade, sorry, to Andrade, and was able to go and get it right back. And so, I mean, we saw that. I think that was a fluke. I think that, yeah, Rose got absolutely slammed, and that's just not something that happens every day, and it's not going to happen again. So,
Right.
I mean, she's shown how skilled she is and just how good she can be. I mean, she beat Joanna Jacek twice, and I mean, she beat KK. I know, CEO of the company, Malik's favorite fighter, but yeah, I mean, Thug Rose is just a total beast, and Esparza's, she's been up and down. I mean, don't get me wrong, she's coming in off of a 5-fight win streak, but it's been just about a year since she fought last. So sure, you could say she's refreshed or whatever, but she's going to have a little bit of ring rust. And when you come back in and you're fighting Thug Rose, you're not going to want to be coming in with a little bit of rust, right? So I think that while it certainly does have the makings of a potential, of a great fight, potential fight of the year, I mean, I got Thug Rose, and I think that she's gonna. I'm pretty dang confident that Thug Rose is gonna get the job done.
I'm on the same wavelength, Dash. I like Carla Esparza a lot. She put on a good showing against Zhao Nunyan in June of last year. TKO win, matter of fact. But I just think it's Rose's time to prove why she might be the best female fighter on the planet. She's knocking on that door. I mean, who's to say she can't be? You know, I mean, obviously the weight
Valentina maybe, but
Valentina maybe, but
other
the weight
than that,
classes,
that's it.
yeah, and I would say the weight classes would probably prevent that from happening. But if she's not one, which I don't think she is, she's either 2 or 3. Like I at this point,
I think she's my number 2. She's my number 2 pound for pound female fighter right now.
Yeah, even with Amanda still being the champ at featherweight, I would still put Rose ahead of her. Juliana Pena, terrific win. Don't get me wrong, but you got to prove to me that it's not just Buster Douglas. It's not just you beat Mike Tyson, then you lose to Evander Holyfield your next fight. You got to keep it going. If you're Juliana Pena and you want to be on the level of Valentina Shevchenko, which, you know, she can be. I'm not saying Juliana can't, but someone like Rose
I would say she can't.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
that can be a different conversation. But
yeah,
I mean,
different. But I say all that to say Rose, at this point in time, is knocking on that doorstep to be the very best female fighter on planet Earth. I'm not saying she is, but she's right there. A win over Carla Esparza, avenging that loss, I think does that for her. I think that puts her at the table. It gives her a seat at the table, puts her in that conversation. That is very important. I think she's going to do it through her striking. I don't think Esparza is going to get a 3rd round submission like she did last time.
No.
So, and also the circumstances were different. Rose took that fight. I think it was a 17-month layoff she had. And that was actually her UFC debut because she fought in Invicta before then. And she actually lost to Tisha Torres, the fight before she took against Carla Esparza. So Rose has been around the block. She's fought everybody pretty much. And I think she's going to pull away with that one. So that's going to be a great co-main. And very, very quickly before we wrap up, I mean, you got Donald Cowboy Cerrone, you got Joe Lazon, you got Tony Ferguson, Michael Chandler. What fights stand out to you on this card before we wrap up and call it a night?
I mean, there's a lot of names. I don't know how there are a lot of old names, and I think it's going to be interesting to see because they're certainly not the same fighters they were 5-6 years ago. I don't see the Michael Chandler Tony Ferguson fight being particularly close. I think Michael Chandler is he's a contender for the belt still, and there are some that think he should have the belt. And Tony Ferguson's not at that level anymore. He's coming off of 3 straight losses, and this is, in my opinion, going to be his last fight against a real contender in the lightweight division. So, yeah, I think that one's going to be interesting. I mean, it's always fun seeing Shogun fight, but I don't know, St. Pro's, he's the favorite to win. I think that'll be a good fight. But yeah, I mean, they're old names, they're fun names, but I don't know. I'm not too thrilled about them. I think one fight to keep an eye on is in the prelims, the headliner of the prelims, Andre Fialho is fighting UFC newcomer Cameron Van Camp.
Yep.
I think you got to keep an eye out for Van Camp in the future. I don't think he gets the job done this week. I think he hasn't seen a striker like Fialho. If you want to go out and watch some Cameron Van Camp fights, there are some on YouTube for everybody watching. And you'll see just how different the level of fighters he's going up against are compared to the UFC. So
Right. And it's going to be a good card. Andre Fialho, he's headlining the prelims. Owen St. Preux, like you talked about, he's fighting Shogun. And I am looking forward, though, to Chandler Ferguson. Like, I know it's a very casual fight, but I don't know. I see it for as long as it lasts, which I do think Chandler's going to knock him out. I think so, or stop him, I should say. For as long as it lasts, I think it's going to be entertaining. So we'll see how that goes. But Dash, that is going to wrap up this week's edition of Strikes and Submissions. My name's Michael Daly for Dash Pederson. We are saying so long, take care, and of course, make sure you subscribe to TWSN on YouTube, Twitter, all that good stuff. You check out all of our live shows. But that will wrap up this week's edition. We broke down all the fights. Make sure you watch them. We'll be back next Wednesday, 7 Eastern, 4 Pacific. Peace.
peace.